This year, my contribution to Black History Month is this bonus video about Robert Charles, a man who stood up to racial injustice and police brutality in New Orleans in 1900. Let's have a chat. Robert Charles was born in Mississippi just after the Civil War. His parents had been enslaved. During Reconstruction, he had the right to vote. But after Reconstruction and the federal troops left, white people in the South felt that they had lost their supremacy and sought to regain it. In 1890, Charles lost his right to vote when Mississippi amended their constitution to require poll taxes and literacy tests as conditions for registering to vote. The literacy test administered to black voters was not the same as the one given to white voters. Charles moved to New Orleans, where he would still have the right to vote. However, in 1898, he lost his political voice once again, as Louisiana voted to amend their constitution to contain similar poll taxes and literacy tests as Mississippi. Charles was an activist and proponent of black rights. He was a proponent of Back to Africa, a movement to get black people to go to Liberia. He sold pamphlets and literature promoting a future in Africa. The incident that started the riot on July 23, 1900, was Charles and his roommate, Leonard Pierce, were sitting on the steps at 2815 Dryads in New Orleans. Charles' girlfriend, Virginia Banks, lived there with a white family. Charles was waiting for Virginia to come out. 3 white policemen, Jules Aucoin, Auguste Mora, and Joseph Cantrell, approached Charles and Leonard and asked what they were doing. Charles got up, which the white officers took as a sign of aggression. Mora grabbed Charles and reached for his billy club. Charles was a believer in armed resistance. He owned a Winchester rifle and a pistol, which was strapped to his waist. He knew how to use firearms and even crafted his own ammunition. Charles was also aware of the convict lease program, in which primarily black convicts were leased out for labor, a backdoor method of reinstituting slavery in the South during post-Reconstruction. Charles knew that being detained for vagrancy, which is what he would be charged with for sitting on the steps of the home in a white neighborhood, would result in weeks or even months of slavery on a chain gang. A friend of Charles said he heard Charles say that he would never be arrested. This explains the drastic action taken by Charles on that fateful night. He drew his gun and shot Mora, wounding him in the leg and hand. Charles fled, but Mora shot Charles in the leg as he ran, and he left a trail of blood to his home at 2023 4th Street, New Orleans. He there retrieved his rifle. 4 police officers arrived at the home at 3 a.m. When they entered the front door, Charles shot and killed 2 of them, and then fled once again. By this time, people got word of the shooting and mobs formed, not to look for Charles. The white people knew that in the black areas of town, they would be outgunned. Instead, they rioted in the mixed-race areas of town that were mostly white, shooting into the homes of black residents. Black people were pulled from streetcars and beaten or killed. They burned down Thom Lofton School, considered the best black school in New Orleans. Following the school burning, the white school board ended education for black students beyond the 5th grade. This remained in place until 1917, when McDonough 35 High School was built, a black high school, and here is McDonough today. Charles hid at 1208 Saratoga Street for 3 days before police were tipped off to his location. Charles hid in an outbuilding. When police approached his location, he burst forth, firing his Winchester, killing 1 police officer and mortally wounding a second. He fled into the main house and held off a mob of 5,000 to 10,000 for 2 hours. A reporter said there were so many bullet holes in the house that it looked like a sieve. During the standoff, Charles shot 12 more people, killing 3. The fire marshal then soaked a mattress in oil and set it on fire, pushing it into the house. The fire did what the bullets could not. Charles came out of the house and was shot and killed by a member of the Citizens Police. that the New Orleans Police Department recruited to help capture Charles. The mob was still angry, though, and continued to shoot and beat Charles' corpse. When they finished with the body, it was hardly recognizable as being human. Charles was buried in Holt Cemetery. There is no grave marker to indicate where he is buried. By the time the riot was quelled, 60 black people were injured or killed. Sierra Chenier wrote a beautiful article addressing the question of whether Robert Charles was a criminal or a hero. She asks the important questions of why such a violent response to Robert Charles. Here are her words. How deep does hatred have to run to have left your homes and walked across the city of New Orleans to aid law enforcement in locating a suspect to a crime that had nothing to do with you? How deep does hatred have to run to where even the media joined in the demonization of the black community as Negro criminals? How deep does hatred have to run where burning down black homes, institutions, and beating and killing random black people was seen as some type of victory? How deep does hatred have to run to have gotten gratification out of watching and helping a man get riddled with bullets? How deep does hatred have to run to, even after death, call for further mutilation of a person's body? Pretty deep. That was never just about Robert Charles. The reality is that throughout history, every Robert Charles that either challenged or defied the conditions of black people all paid the ultimate price. And I believe that he knew that he was a dead man from the first moment of interaction with the officers. Black Lives Matter. Live your life.